Well, good evening. My name is Paul Kent, and I'm at the Public Access TV for Channel 27 in Vacaville. And tonight we'll be interviewing Brian Thiemer, who's running for Fairfield Council. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Happy
to be here at VCTV 27.
You're welcome. Good, awesome. Well, let's get straight to it. We've got some issues in Fairfield that need to be addressed. It seems like we're just suffering a little bit. Crime is up over the last 2 years, potholes, metering lights seem to be a concern of the public, almost having accidents, and joblessness, redevelopment. So these are some of the things that we'll be talking about with Brian tonight. So let's start with the metering lights.
Yeah, the metering lights, they're pretty much a new addition to the Solano County area. I'm from Silicon Valley, so I've experienced the joy of them for the last 10 years or so. The issue is, from a technical issue, I think they negatively impact the people of Fairfield. They just back up traffic onto Fairfield city streets without any really benefit for the Highway 80 travelers. Additionally, many people that are getting onto the highway from Fairfield are usually just getting on the highway just so they can jump to the next off-ramp. Rather than the metering lights, what if we had a dedicated merge lane for them to use, so they don't have to hop into the flow of traffic and disrupt traffic further? You know, when we built the Highway 80 system back in the 60s, those on-ramps were designed to be long enough where a person could get on them, get up to speed, and by the time they merged onto the highway, they were going 60 miles an hour and safely merging with traffic. With the addition of the metering light, you essentially put a stoplight at the very end of that, and now you only have about 50 feet to try to get up to highway speeds. So I think from just that aspect, it's really an unsafe addition and not a benefit to Fairfield. But the other issue is that typically a city council would be the last group to approve the activation of the metering lights. In this case, Fairfield City Council and other city councils in county did not have that choice. They were basically almost held hostage by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Solano Transportation Authority, that said either you activate these lights or we're not going to give you this bag of money. So in that regards, the city council sort of surrendered their authority to activate those lights. For me, I disagree with that. I would have just said, you keep your money, those metering lights are not worth the cost.
Good. The train station, which is a big deal. We're talking about the thing I read about it, that they're going to increase the speed of 5 miles per hour, and they call it a bullet train. So
well, the bullet trains are not. The train station that they're going to build in the Peabody area is not part of the bullet train system. This is just going to be another station on the Capitol Corridor Amtrak station. My issue is that in 2007, when this plan was hatched, that area was not even part of Fairfield, and it was only going to cost $40 million for this train station. Here it is 7 years later. It's now up to $81.5 million for the entire project, and we don't even get a train station. We get a train platform. If you want a train station, that's a whole nother project. Other concerns I have are, has anyone checked with Amtrak to see if they will actually service both the Fairfield Sassoon and the Fairfield Vacaville train station? I think they're too close together to support both. You know, by the time the train gets up to speed leaving one station, they would have to slow down to the next one. So I think there's some technical issues, let alone the money issue. But my solution, rather than building a whole new train station out in basically what would be either East Fairfield or South Vacaville, if train stations are such a great benefit to the community, we have a train station already in Fairfield Sassoon. Yeah. Let's take that $40 million, $80 million and invest it in our existing train station area. We can maximize the existing infrastructure and upgrade it. And it being so close to our downtown, which is another underutilized area of Fairfield, I think that would benefit both downtown area and really existing residents. And I think if we're on the hook for $80 million, we should try to benefit existing areas in our community and existing residents who are inevitably on the hook for all that money.
Good. Golf course issue.
Yeah, golf courses are great. However, should they be under the purveyance of a city government? I don't think they're vital to the functioning of city government. In particular, our 2 golf courses, they're losing money. We're on the hook for the bonds that built the golf courses, but additionally, their annual operating income does not cover their costs, and they've had to borrow additional money from our enterprise fund. So to me, it's not vital and it's losing money. That's a candidate to divest it. Sell it off, privatize it. If there's a market for golf courses, someone will buy that and let them operate that. We can take that money that we sell the golf courses off, pay off the debt that we owe on them, reduce our debt load, and any profit that we have left over we can use to invest in other parklands that everyone could use. In light of core services like street maintenance and public safety that Fairfield residents just approved a temporary tax increase for, to me it doesn't sync up with our priorities. Had Measure P, which was the tax increase, been marketed as save our golf courses, I don't think it would have passed. Golf courses get rubber stamped and approved and bailed out. We have to fight and struggle to get potholes maintained. And to me, that says that the priorities of our city government are out of line with the priorities of the people of Fairfield.
Increase of crime over the last 2 years.
Right. And this is not unique to Fairfield. I think every community is having it. A lot of it is to blame with the realignment of the prisons population for the state of California. Jerry Brown was kind of forced to do something, and we're seeing the backlash from that. A lot of low-level offenders or people that had a couple years left on their sentences are being re-released. And one school of thought is, well, if we just would have put them in prison longer, this wouldn't be a problem. I disagree with that. The prison system is at capacity, and with a recidivism rate of 60%, which is saying that out of 10 prisoners that are released today, 6 of them will be back in the system within 2 years. With a failure rate like that, that's awful. The system is not sustainable. It's a dead end. So rather than trying to correct or permanently lock away these people, my strategy would be more of a prevention and discouragement. And we should try to prevent crime from happening. And if criminals decide to make Fairfield home, we need to discourage that. Make it uncomfortable. If they're on your streets and they're doing stuff, either full-blown gang activity or they're just being a pack of hooligans that are tagging or breaking glass, go after them, say, hey, not in our city. One thing I want to pursue is, are we subsidizing these criminals from living in Fairfield, either for social services or they're hanging out with other friends and relatives that are getting assorted services? If there's some connection between us subsidizing people that are supporting the criminals, we need to cut that subsidy. We need to starve that machine that encourages and enables people to thrive. Crime is somewhat of a business, and we want to make the cost of doing crime absorbently high in Fairfield. We're not going to cure them when they're not going to see the light, but if we can discourage them and have them go to the next town that doesn't care as much as we do, that's fine. At the end of the day, we want them out of Fairfield.
And also the joblessness aggravates that.
Yeah, there's jobs. To some extent, when you're a high school graduate or college graduate and you want to work, and you're trying to make some money legitimately, and there's not those options, sure, some low-level crime may occur. But as far as the person who grabbed a gun and is randomly shooting people, drive-by shootings, that's less of a job thing. I don't think there's a correlation. I've been out of work myself for an extended period. I never felt the need to go hold up a bank or shoot people randomly. So there's some connectivity, but I'm not going to do a 100% correlation between joblessness and violent crime. As far as creating jobs, I think we need to government does not create jobs. Government creates, we can create an environment where businessmen and entrepreneurs want to create businesses and thusly hiring people in the local community. So to that end, how do we be the most competitive city in California? California does not have the best business climate, and we've heard 100 stories. So how do we become the best of the worst? And one idea I have is, Solano County is part of Plan Bay Area, which is a future planning program in conjunction with, say, Agenda 21 or AB 32 compliance. Now, rather than surrendering our control to Plan Bay Area and we're at the mercy of people from San Francisco, San Jose, or Oakland, I say let's break off from Plan Bay Area and create a Plan Solano, where we bring back control to the local area, and we can market ourselves and say we're still compliant with AB 32, but without all those strings and bureaucracies that you have to deal with Bay Area crime. We're a little more flexible, and thusly we're an oasis in the Bay Area where we're the most competitive place in the Bay Area to do business.
Good. We're going to pick back up in a moment. We're just going to take some time out, and we'll be right back with Brian Thiemer, running for Fairfield Council. Hi, we're back again with Brian Thiemer. This is Channel 27 in Vacaville, Public Access TV. So, Brian, we've been talking about issues in Fairfield as you're running for council. why should we bother with you? What's so special about you that gives us a different flavor or makes us excited? Hey, there's a guy who's going to do something for me. You know, because in a way we're your employer.
Yes.
And so we're looking for some benefit.
Right.
What benefit will we get from Brian Thiemer?
So you're right. Elections are a hiring. You're hiring a person, or for our case, there's 2 city council positions open, but you're hiring someone for a 4-year contract. You know, so I want really people to stress that. You know, every time I'm talking with potential constituents, that's, to me, it's an interview. And there's 100,000 people in Fairfield, and up to 100,000 interviews that I'm going to have to answer to. You have a choice. There's 11 candidates for 2 spots, and that really says 2 things to me. Number one, it's the caliber of people in Fairfield that are willing to step up and say, I'm willing to make a difference, but also it makes a statement about the opinions of the existing city council. For me, I attend many city council meetings and I watch their activities, and far too often they're rubber stamping all these issues. Too many unanimous consents. They literally have purchased a rubber stamp because it's easier than writing all 5 names. And to me, when I watch those people in this chamber, I want to see some constructive dissent. I want to make sure that when a request for money or a ordinance is passed, that people have really hashed it out and looked at all different angles. For me, I'm a supply chain analyst. That's by trade. I have a finance and I have a operations management background in college. And I always ask questions. In the private sector, if a teammate wants to buy some equipment or they want to pursue a project, I'm always asking, why are we doing this? And is this the most efficient way to do that? And I think those 2 basic questions alone should always be asked every time, city council and city staff spend our hard-earned tax dollars. Beyond that, what separates me from the other 10 candidates we're all motivated to improve our community. I get that. Now, we're all coming from 11 different angles. So for me, when I'm up there, number one, my view of representation, as your representative, I'm your advocate, and I want to take your concerns and grievances. If you're not getting the services that you think you deserve, and again, government is a service provider. They're providing street maintenance, park maintenance, public safety. So those are services. And if you're not getting value, and I mean excellent value, for your tax dollar, then I want you to come to me and say, hey, I'm not getting this. And I will take your concerns up to the city council and the city staff and say, here's a customer. And we, the people of Fairfield, are Fairfield's customers. So I want you to ask that. Is Fairfield doing a great job of satisfying the customers, which are the people, the citizens, and the small businesses of Fairfield? So when I'm up there, and I'm going to report back to you, I'm going to say, here's what's going on with that project. You have a pothole in your street. What's going on with that? I can communicate to you. It may not always be great news, but I think at least you're going to get an honest answer. Your pothole is on the list. It's going to be done in 2 months. If you don't get it done in 2 months, you call me again. We're going to make that happen.
It sounds like you're a representative rather than a politician.
My motivation is there. I'm a customer of Fairfield Services just like you. I have my wife, I have my son, and I look at the path that we're headed, and I want to be able to turn a Fairfield over to my son and hopefully my grandchildren down the road that they can be proud of, that they want to invest in both financially and emotionally. And I don't want to have to saddle them with a bunch of debt to do it. So anything we do, it should be scalable. It may be nice to have a really nice building right now, but if I'm saddling my children and my grandchildren with the cost of that, then I, as a parent, have not done my job. I have shirked my responsibility and just offloaded it to the next generation. So to that end, when we make decisions, I want to communicate to all stakeholders, all citizens, and say, here's why I voted for this thing, or here's why I voted against this. And I'm going to communicate that via Facebook or email or telephone call, whatever it takes to let you know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Secondly, I have decided not to take any contributions from public unions, political action committees, or businesses. I think it's important to get money out of the electoral process. Again, when I make a vote, I want you to be absolutely confident and comfortable knowing that I did it for the right reasons, not that the person or group that I negotiated with just happened to contribute a bunch of money to my reelection campaign. So by taking the money out of that, it's bringing it down. There's more transparency, and you know where my true motivations lie. Finally, as far as there's compensation involved, I'm going to refuse any compensation. If I have to take it, I'm going to donate it to worthy charities in the Fairfield area. To me, this is about my contribution to the community, and I think it should be about public service, not self-service.
Okay, good. There's some sort of rumor about redevelopment. We had it, we lost it. So there's a lot of money involved there somewhere.
So all communities in California, most of them had redevelopment, and it got unplugged abruptly for the most part, and we're still trying to untangle that mess. Now, I was always against redevelopment because, again, it's not within the scope of government. I don't think government should be making, winners and losers and determining, what properties and what businesses belong and what don't. I believe the free market should determine that, and if they want to stimulate growth and economic development, the best way to do that is get out of people's way. So in the case of Fairfield, we had a redevelopment district. They had spent a lot of money on buying up properties with great plans, a grand vision, but then the market collapsed and the state yanked the funding. The fundamental flaw with redevelopment is that if we had a piece of property, say it was an empty lot, and it was producing $1,000 worth of property tax revenue, the redevelopment comes along and says, this property is part of the redevelopment district. At that point, any additional revenue from that parcel goes directly to the redevelopment district. So right there's avenues for corruption, because if they know that a Walmart's going to be building on this property, they may just want to jump on that property and they take the benefit of that additional property tax revenue. But on the other half, and this is where cities really suffered, any additional cost for maintaining that property, police, fire, sidewalks, infrastructure, was still borne by the city government. So now you have the profit from that parcel going to the redevelopment district, but the city still has to pay for those additional costs. That's why the money was hemorrhaging, and there was a lot of cross-pollination. Now, Jerry Brown went ahead and wanted to reclaim some of that money. Initially, the state was reimbursing the lost education dollars. Remember, the profit went to the redevelopment district, but the school districts weren't getting any of that benefit. So the state was reimbursing the school districts. So indirectly, the state was subsidizing redevelopment districts. So that all came falling apart. That house of cards came along. So now we're trying to sift through the ash and trash. And we see that a lot of those deals in Fairfield really weren't that great. There was one property that we spent $800,000 plus on, and we ended up selling it for 20% of that value. So we lost $600,000 on an $800 and something thousand property.
Yeah.
In the private sector, that would not be allowed. If I lost $600,000 on a project, I would certainly get a talking to, if not be fired. But in city government, it's just part of the normal rule of law around there. We look at all the properties that we used to have in Fairfield. We used to have a bowling alley. It may have been shaggy as a bowling alley, but at least people could use it if they wanted to. Now we have an empty lot that's attracting weeds and garbage. We used to have a truck stop. It was shaggy, I'll admit it, but at least people could use it, and the free market could determine that, and it was contributing to our community in some regard. Now we have an empty lot with weeds and garbage. So now our community is pockmarked with all these empty lots that are now a liability because the city, you and I, own them, and they're not adding value to the community. So all those lessons learned from that, let's not do it again. Unfortunately, a redevelopment 2.0, as I call it, under Senate Bill number 1, is working its way through the state government. I believe it's either on the governor's desk or it's been approved, and they want to reboot redevelopment. My issue with that is that the bonds, they want to sell bonds. Bonds are a terrible way to finance anything, but the kicker is they don't need to get voter approval to sell these bonds. So now we're out of the loop, the voters, the taxpayers who are inevitably on the hook for these things. And again, we're going to just try to do the same people, the same organization, and the same philosophy that created the first mess are going to try to do it again. And again, it's not the vital role of government to determine what buildings and what businesses should be in there.
So it seems like you've done your research with all these things. To get back on jobs, because many, I know people have left California, because they can't stand the environment that's been created by sometimes federal government, sometimes state, but they're not protected by the local government. Local government are not walking around the streets and saying, how's your business doing?
Right.
You know, I had a business for several years in Fairfield, and when I shut it down, when I sold it, I found that I wasn't in compliance because they changed so many laws. And they could walk in any time and find me. Unfortunately, they didn't find out about that, but you know, could you address that a little bit? The difficulty of running a business and not finding support from council.
So, you know, again, the government is a service provider, and we want to provide a ripe garden bed that you can grow your business or whatever that is, whatever brings you joy. Again, you know, this is our community, and whatever brings you joy and can put food on the table and put a roof over your head, you should be able to pursue. Now, as far as starting a business, if you go to the city government and you want to start a business, I want the city's attitude. If you come to me and say, Brian, I want to start a new auto shop. I want to build a windmill. I want to build a new house. The attitude you should get from all members of city staff is, that's awesome. How can we help? If you're not getting that, then we need to change that philosophy. Now, if there's permits and fees and taxes and all this other stuff, if the government is collecting a tax from you, I want to make sure that it's to cover the impact that your business or your house is having on the community, and not that it's just an excuse to extract from you and so they can use it on other things. In taxation, I think it should be a fee for services. So when you pay a vehicle fee, I think that's legitimate, assuming it's going to maintain roads that you can drive your vehicle on there. But if it's just a vehicle fee then to go sell carbon credits or something like that, that's not a cost as a result of you using your property. So any fees, permits, I want to double check that they're actually covering the costs, direct costs borne by your activities. Now on the other end, we've had a lot of big name employers leave, MV Transportation, Copart. Now when these employers leave, I think at the very least we should do a post-mortem. Why are you leaving? You know, those are a lot of quality jobs, and they're all leaving.
Yeah.
Now, if it's something that Fairfield did, I want to go back to our city statutes and say, hey, here's this law, here's this ordinance that's restricting growth and prosperity. Let's fix it. And fix it for everyone. I don't want to have, you know, certain laws for certain well-connected companies. You know, if it's good enough for one company, I think everyone should be able to benefit from that rule change. Now, if it's something that the county is doing, then we, the people of Fairfield, should march down the 5 blocks to county center and say, hey, county supervisors, here's a law that's restricting us or hindering growth and prosperity. We need to change it. Similarly, if it's something that the state is doing, then we need to recall our, our senator and our assemblyman, bring them back and say, hey, folks, these laws at the state level are hindering our growth and prosperity and hurting the people of Fairfield and Solano County. Go change them, and if you can't, we're going to go find someone who can.
Good. Well, there you have it. We'll take a break now, and we'll be right back with Brian Thiemer. Thank you. Well, we're back with Brian Thiemer at VCT 27 in Vacaville. So Brian, just I want to thank you as we wrap up now, and is there something specific you'd want to talk to Fairfield voters?
So, you know, fortunately, you as a voter of Fairfield, and there's 100 and something thousand residents of Fairfield, you have abundance of choices for City Council this year, which is great. You have 11 choices for 2 seats. You've heard my viewpoints on various issues that are facing the city. You know where I'm coming from. You know that when I'm making a decision, when I'm making a thought or an opinion, it's coming from here and it's coming from here. I'm talking from the heart. That's really my thing. I have a vision for me and my family. I think in talking with other people in around Fairfield that we share the same vision. You can go with the incumbents. You can go with people who have been in city council before, or you can go with new faces that are more reflective of the respective communities. You have choices. That's great. I'm asking you to consider me because I think I am touching the topics that affect us all I have the background and the analytical thinking that says, is this the best use of our limited resources? Will this benefit current Fairfield residents and create a foundation for growth and prosperity in the future? So I ask you, come to my website, Thiemer, Thiemer, for Fairfield.com. I have all my ideas and other opinions listed on there. You can check it out. You can meet with me, ask me questions. I definitely want to reach out to you and hear your concerns in your neighborhoods and in your districts. So please check out, consider me, and I really appreciate your vote.
So how long has it taken you to get to this decision? How long have you been thinking about it, and then you've made a final decision?
I moved to Fairfield 5 years ago. The same day we discovered we're having our first child. When you have children, your whole viewpoint and your lifestyle pivots around your children. And I wanted to be in an area where, I could be affordable housing, job opportunities, and an environment where my kid could have the best that is affordable to offer. So I moved here with my family, and I started thinking about being a homeowner, being a parent. I want great value for my family. That's what and where is that going to be? I started, participating, attending city council meetings, and as you get ingratiated and you start looking through the budget line items and see the actual details and who the players are, I saw that, for me, it looked like city council, instead of representing and taking direction from the people, they were actually taking direction from the city staff. And to me, that's backwards. I think staff should take direction from our representatives who take direction from the people of Fairfield. So after talking to people both on the council, in the audience, on the streets, I started thinking there needs to be another viewpoint, at least a viewpoint. Let's have some constructive dissent when we're talking about large expenditures and laws that are going to impact our families. And after seeking counsel with friends, family, and really looking inside, I decided that at the very least, I'm going to get up there and take my at bat. At least I swung the bat and I did my best. Roberto Clemente said that if you have a chance to make the world a better place and you don't take advantage of that, you're wasting your time. And that quote has really resonated with me. So that's why I'm running for city council. I want to get up there. I want to at least take my at bat and say, here are my ideas. I think other people have the same viewpoints, other concerns, and I'm going to do my best to bring them to light and derive quality solutions that benefit all of Fairfield.
Wow, thank you very much. There you have it from Brian Thiemer, and this is Paul signing off at VCTV 27 in Vancouver. And I'd like to thank the station for hosting this tonight too. Thank you.